welcome to the most entertaining, engaging, and charismatic podcast. I am the most charismatic man in entertainment, the Prince of Fresh Air. That's right, I am back live from New York City. And by the way, Arnold Schwarzenegger called me, asked me for a little bit of advice. I'll get back to him. I wanted to sit down. By the way, Tom Holland, I know you're listening. I will get back to your email. Don't worry. I will reach back out. And, a lot of people calling me up, Chris Hemsworth, Chris Evans, everybody, Zendaya. I know she was asking me to go to the Lakers game with her, but, I'm busy. I'm in demand. I am the most charismatic man. So, I'm sorry, Dwayne The Rock Johnson. You're the most electrifying man, but I think I'm coming up on there. I think I'm coming up on you. I'm just kidding. But, I just want to sit down and have a meaningful conversation. I don't think I do that enough on this podcast. And, it's been an interesting last couple of weeks for me. Inflation is a mess, as we all know. Let me tell you something. I went grocery shopping a couple days ago, and I was looking for some ground beef. I like ground beef, and I love fish. I love eating that stuff. And $12 for some ground beef for a pound. It's ridiculous. A dozen of eggs, it's like $7 in the city. I mean, at this point, I might need to take out a mortgage loan to afford groceries. Can anybody relate to this? Am I tripping here? It's nuts. I even looked at a bag of frozen fruit, and it was still almost $10. I mean, how can people live in this society? But nonetheless, I digress. I don't want to get into that. But, honestly, I have had a great, interesting couple weeks. I've had a lot of deep, meaningful conversations with my buddy Odie, lifelong friend. He was on a podcast, The Real Talk with Odysseus Georgiadis. Go check that out. It was a really good episode. And Odie's been in the entertainment industry for many years. He's done, he had his own show on Netflix called Trinkets. He's done a lot of cool other projects with celebrities and movies and TV shows and commercials. Really good guy I've known for, 13 years now. Dimitri, everybody knows him. He's a recurring guest on this podcast. And, the other day, me and Odie, we don't really get to sit down and talk often, but when we do, we have these meaningful, deep conversations. And we was in Central Park the other day, just, shooting it up. And we went to go grab some coffee somewhere on Park Ave, looking at the grocery, looking at the high-end stores. And then when we went to go sit in the Central Park and talk. And we just talked about the entertainment industry, acting, and, the future, and I want people to realize, trust me, life is hard. Sometimes, in life, we feel like our back's against the wall, especially with inflation. I mean, Jesus, I might have to start eating Cheerios now. I can't even afford some cheese. Well, I mean, I can, but I might have to take out a whole high interest mortgage rate for some cheese. But life seems to sometimes put us against the wall. We feel like there's no light at the end of the tunnel, and things are blocking our path to get to freedom. Whether that's inflation or just, a hard day at work, or just life feels like you're stuck in a rut. And it's important to have conversations with people who understand you and care about you. And this goes for many people, whether you're pursuing a career in the entertainment industry or whatever career you desire. It's hard. I've been acting for 13 years now, and it is hard. I'll say this. A lot of people look at the cool hair, the great personality, the signature charisma. Beat that Dwayne The Rock Johnson, that's right. And people think I have it easy. I don't have it easy. Life hits me just as hard as it does other people. I may just seem cool. I may seem like a superhero to some people, but I'm an ordinary person. I'm not better than anybody. And life kicks me down too. I've had many days where I thought I was going to have a hard time just getting by in society, pursuing my love for the entertainment and the arts. I love performing. I love content creating. And, me and Odie, we sat down, we had a 2-3 hour conversation just talking. Me and Dimitri, the other day, we had a long, meaningful conversation too. And this ties into the episode, relationships. Relationships are a big thing in our society. And social media has kind of ruined that in a sense. The way how we communicate with each other, the way how we interact with each other, it has changed the game. Whether it's dating, whether it's friendships and family, relationships are a big thing in our society, and that ties into this podcast. Now, this podcast, before I bring in Dimitri, this episode is not Love Island. We're not talking about Flavor Flav here. It's not that type of episode. Now we're gonna be talking about relationships, aka dating life. And funny story, if you haven't ever watched the Jubilee episode, YouTube channel Jubilee episode, I was in online dating versus traditional. Go check that out. One of my favorite episodes I've done with them. And social media has changed the game in dating. And let's be real here. Let's just be real. People use Instagram as dating. Can we agree on that? I think a lot of people are trying to act like it's not true, but everybody's shooting a shot on IG. We have Tinder, we have Hinge, Christian Mingle, and all that stuff. But IG is like the new form of social media dating. Let's just be real here. But dating is a big thing. We have a lot of content creators and podcasters and all people on different platforms talking about dating, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, whatever. And I said, you know what? No need to fear because I am here. It makes sense for me to talk about it. Relationships, like I said, is a big thing. Everybody's talking about it. I saw a lot of big news blowing up, celebrity news, Twitter news breaking about relationships, whether it's marriage, relationships, or whatever the case may be. And it's a big thing in our society, and we need to talk about it. And I haven't really talked about relationships on this podcast. A lot of people want to know about my love life, want to know about me behind the scenes. You have met Natalie. She's been on. She's my current girl. And, but I have been single for many years. I've been through that phase of using Tinder and all that stuff. And especially as a young person, we have it hard right now. It's hard finding a partner. It's hard finding companionship. And, whether you see the value in relationships, we all need it. At some point in our lives, we all look for a partner. We all desire a partner. We all want a relationship. And so I thought, you know what? Let me bring out my signature charisma. Let me bring out the mic. Let me bring out the personality and talk about relationships. So we're gonna be hitting a lot of hard hitting topics, and we're gonna have fun though. Like I said, I'm trying to do something different with the podcast. I love doing the hard hitting stuff, but I want to have fun. I don't want people driving on their way home from work, stuck in traffic, hearing about some, awful news story. I want to have fun on this. I want to have meaningful, fun, enjoyable, comedic episodes. So this episode is brought to you by inflation. That's right. This podcast is not free no more. I am charging people to listen for $5,000. I got bills to pay, people. Nah, I'm just kidding. It's always going to be free for now. But nonetheless, let's get into the episode. Like I said, Dimitri, lifelong buddy, lifelong friend. He's coming back on. We're going to be talking about this. And, just before we get into it, I have some cool things. I've been auditioning for some cool projects. So hopefully I could share some details soon. I actually have a couple guest appearances on other platforms, other podcasts. So when that comes out, I'll definitely share the word on that so you can check that out. I want to be a little more open. I feel like as much as I enjoy this podcast, a lot of people may want to know more about me per se. And I want to start doing that. I want people to get to know the man behind the mic, the most charismatic man. There's much more to me than what meets the eyes or the ears. You know what I'm saying? So without further ado, let's get into the episode. By the way, Zoe Zaldana, I did hear through my agent you was calling me, so don't worry, I'll get back to you. But nonetheless, I digress. Let's get into the episode in 3, 2. I didn't say 1 yet. I didn't say 1. Let's slow your roll here. All right, let's start again. 3, 2, 1. And coming live from New York, raining, it's pouring, the old man is snoring, all that good stuff. We was talking about this. Me and Dimitri was talking about this last week. We was doing something unrelated, but this is a topic I haven't really talked about on this podcast. Surprisingly, I've talked about some of the things involved in this topic in terms of like media, headlines, news stuff, blowing up on Twitter. But I actually never sat down and had a conversation, to the ladies, to the young men, to the worldwide audience about relationships. With the rise of Kevin Samuels, the rise of the Andrew Tates, all of these social media influencers who are life coaches. It's a big thing in our society. Relationships, everybody looks for them at some point, whether it's friendships, dating, family. Everybody's also always looking for relationships, and I thought it'd be nobody better to do it with than having Dimitri come on and talk about this. What's up, man?
Hey, hi, what's up, man? What's going on?
You know, like I said, we both have different dating histories. You've been in long term relationships. I have, and this is actually my first long term relationship, more than 4 months. Um, I'm sure we've both used dating apps, Tinder, Hinge, all that good stuff. We use social media, sliding in the DMs. I think we're all guilty of that. Um, but there's much more to relationships, and it's something that I've seen podcasts, I've seen influencers, I've seen life coaches talk about, and I want to get into it because there's so many opinions on relationships going on that a lot of people don't have a voice of reason. And I think as the most charismatic man in entertainment, it's my duty to inform people of the realities of dating. So let me ask you, Dimitri. I want to ask you this first question because it's fun. It's not controversial, but my first Jubilee video, online dating versus traditional dating, they actually asked us this prompt. It didn't make the final cut for the video, but I actually want to ask you this because I see this phrase and this word thrown around way too often. Love at first sight. We've all heard it. We've all probably know somebody who said it before. Um, Let me ask you: do you think love at first sight is a real thing? Do you think that's a made up term, or do you think that's real?
You know, I wouldn't really call it love at first sight. You know what I'm saying? I would say more so it's like attraction at first sight because you can't say, oh, I knew I loved her from the first time I saw her. That's not true because you don't know her. To love somebody is to know them, is understand them, flaws and all. So I don't think love at first sight is a real thing. It's more so attraction at first sight, interest at first sight. So I could see somebody and say, wow, they're very attractive. They pique my interest. Let me go see what's up. And I could say I knew from the first time I saw her that I knew I wanted to get to know her, that she was somebody I wanted to get to know versus me saying, oh, I loved her. No, to me, that's not true. I don't really agree with that.
No, I agree. I hear this word all the time, and it's usually people using this excuse for doing outrageous, stupid things in terms of dating. Look, I think the key word in this is sight. You don't love somebody if that instantly, and if you do, it's usually because you have low self esteem. And I'm not trying to make fun of nobody with that. But this whole love at first sight thing is lust. It's not love. You can't love somebody on the first sight you see them. That's just not happen because that's the case. Everybody. I'm not gonna get too much in that. I just find that phrase thrown around way too much, especially on podcasts and dating coaches and stuff like that, which leads me to my next point. And let me say this too. All of this is going to tie to the major key point, Marques Houston, but we're not going to get to him yet. I want to diverge into relationships a little more. Um, but let me ask you, society has changed, relationships has changed over the years, especially when our grandparents grew up to now. Technology, the way how people behave, just society and culture, is all changed. So the dating game, the relationship game, the marriage game is all different. Um, but I, a lot of people feel like social media has ruined relationships, ruined dating life for many people. I'm one of those people, but let me ask you, how do you feel about social media and dating? Do you think that they both correlate to each other and it's healthy, or do you think that it's just up to people to make better informed decisions when it comes to social media and dating?
I think people should not pay social media any mind when it comes to relationships and dating, in my opinion. I think social media plays two parts when it comes to dating and relationships. On one hand, social media is a tool for you to meet people. So if you're somebody that you don't frequent, social gatherings and clubs and parties and concerts and stuff like that, you can use social media to meet people. On the other hand, nowadays, when you're scrolling through the explore page on Instagram or you're scrolling through, your homepage on TikTok, depending on how you engage with it, all you really ever see is relationship, content now. And then that can have a negative impact on the way people think because what these people are saying on social media, that's not real life. I think it's important for people to base their perceptions on, men or women in relationships and love on their own personal experiences and not what people say on social media. Even people who are listening to us talk about it, like, we can give you our perspective, but that is not your experience. That's not your life. And even me, I had to kind of sort of detach myself from that, because that's other people's opinions. So their opinion does not have to be the basis for which how I approach my relationships with women, because that can ruin everything. Because nowadays we have this illusion of, there's so many people out here, it doesn't matter that, I just broke up with a girl because I could just find 10 more just like her. That's not true. Because it's cool to have an abundance mindset, but at the same time, it's like you'll mess up a good thing by listening to those types of people.
Yeah, I say social media, especially TikTok. I used to say Instagram, but I say TikTok because TikTok is the place that's starting all these stupid trends that people are doing to for people to compare their relationships to. For instance, there's like this whole new trend going on where, and it's usually influencers doing it. People who probably have some type of means or having somebody who can afford to do these things. But there's like this thing going around where people either the guy or girl in a relationship has two pieces of paper and they write two things on it. So one could be go shopping at Louis Vuitton, and the other paper would be go on vacation to Europe. And so the partner don't know which one it is. Obviously, sometimes they probably have it written on the back, so they choose whichever one they want. But it's supposed to be like a blind thing in a relationship where you just pick out what you want to do with your partner. And then next thing you know, you see them flying to Europe, first class, business class, eating all this stuff. And people see this stuff. And the reason why I get upset about, well, I'm not really upset about it, but one of the reasons why I feel like relationships suffer nowadays is because a lot of people watch these type of content and wish that they have that type of lifestyle. And unfortunately, a lot of people can't afford that. I think more people need to realize that stuff is just a facade. It's a fake cade. People acting like they have it like that. There was a influencer who actually went viral who did a whole piece about this, where she was doing travel and leisure type of content. So when you see her, she was dressed down in Louis Vuitton, Dior, all this luxury stuff. And she showed you her apartment is massive, it's huge, chandeliers everywhere. I mean, nice cars. And she actually did a piece about it because she ended up stopped doing influencing, and she showed the behind the scenes of everything. She wasn't living like that. She was using her friend's place to record a lot of content. A lot of the stuff she was buying or the stuff she was wearing, she wasn't actually buying. And that's the thing people don't realize. People don't realize this. There's more to the story than what you see on social media. But I think social media has also allowed people to just reach out, which is why marriages are suffering nowadays. People getting divorced after a year or two because you see better options on Instagram or on TikTok or whatever the case may be. But this also leads me to my real next big point, and it's not really so much about social media, but it is. But it's about the influencers, the people who occupy this platform. And when I talk about people, like I said, you have the Andrew Tates of the world, Kevin Samuels, rest in peace to him. Derek Chauvin, he was a big guy at one point in relationships, and there's so many other people who do relationship advice. They cater to that type of sector of content creating. Let me ask you, because like I said, Andrew Tate is one of the most talked about people on the planet. When Kevin Samuels was alive, he was one of the biggest people on the planet. What do you think about social media influencers or people who quote unquote focus on relationship advice? Do you think they are a good thing, or do you think is one of those things where you just take it with a grain of salt?
It could be a good thing and it could be a bad thing. It really just depends on how you take it. I've heard Andrew Tate say things that wasn't a lie. Like, there are things that he said that was true. And then there's other things that he says that I don't agree with because, again, he's Andrew Tate. He's wealthy. He lives a certain lifestyle. So he could afford to just be cavalier, with women and just, throw them away and then just have, 5 more to take their place the next day. So I can't, listen to everything that he says. Again, it's really just food for thought. I would say somebody like Kevin Samuels was probably by far one of the more positive ones. Maybe the way that he would, how should I say, like his verbiage would be harsh, But at the end of the day, when you really listen to him, and especially because for me, after he passed away is when I actually started like letting his videos play. And I'm talking about the longer form, videos where women would come on and they would talk to him. A lot of that is educational and informative for men and women. Again, the message might not have been, the most sensitive, but at the end of the day, it was the most real. And it sucks that a man like that is not around because I felt like he really meant society good, with the work that he was doing because somebody had to do it. And he was someone that was very realistic versus, let's say Andrew Tate, or let's say some of the guys from the, quote unquote manosphere or red pill community. Those guys, you don't really want to listen to them, but someone like Kevin Samuels, you listen to him, but it's important not to put too much stock into anything and to focus on yourself and your personal experiences with the opposite sex.
Right. I have a lot to talk about when it comes to all of this stuff, and I'm going to start off with this. There's a reason why these type of people exist, and it's because they cater to people who are trying to operate the dating world. The dating world is just a mess. Everybody, you see on social media one standard, but then when you in real life, you see a whole completely different standard. I know people like this. I'm not here to debate whether Tate and all of these people are relationship experts, but I can understand why. Like Kevin Samuels made a lot of good points. Andrew Tate made a lot of good points. But again, you have to take their advice with a grain of salt, usually because your experience in dating is going to be different from theirs. Whether if you live in the middle of Iowa, you're not going to have the same access to women as someone like us who live in a metropolitan area, or if you're a high earner, you're going to have more options than somebody who works in fast food. No disrespect to anybody in that type of field, but everybody's bracket, everybody's situation is different. Let me start off with that. And second of all, another reason why I say you got to take their advice with a grain of salt. Now, let me clarify something. I said Derek Chauvin, the dude that murdered George Floyd. I'm not talking about him. I don't think anybody needs to take advice from him. But I meant Derek Jan. And there's been a lot of stories of relationship gurus, whatever you want to call them, content creators. This guy was popular when I was in early college. I was hearing about this dude on Facebook every day. And he was a big influence. He did a lot of paid sponsorships for relationship ads and all this stuff. And he was a big name in the community. Then it turned out, and let me say this, I didn't mind him, but he was a panderer. He was one of those dudes that would he would give advice that was very outdated. He was telling dudes, you got to pay for every date, you got to do this, you got to pay the rent, you got to do this, you got to do that. You shouldn't cheat on your spouse, you shouldn't cheat on your girl, yada yada yada. A lot of outdated stuff that he wasn't even following, and that's why you don't really know. You may not know who this guy is because he fell out the face of the earth because he was pandering to people. He was making a lot of money, charging people hundreds to thousands of dollars to be a client, and then it turned out he had a wife and I think a child, and he was cheating on his wife. He had a whole mistress. He wasn't following any of the advice he was giving to people. This dude was just having a whole double life that he was living. But when you see him on Facebook and Instagram, he was talking about destroying happy homes, not to cheat on your significant other, and that type of advice. But then, it found out he was getting his mistress pregnant, and he's been having affairs for a couple of years. I mean, that's the problem for me, is that a lot of these people don't practice what they preach. And on top of that, I think one of the reasons I brought this up, and I'm gonna ask you this because this ties into this. So this TikToker, of course, I had to. You knew it was coming. The TikToker was coming up. Um, so there's a lot of TikTok influencers who do dating advice, and this girl, who I'm not gonna lie, she's a pretty good looking girl. She Let me see what's her name. Her name is Freeman. Uh, she lives in Brooklyn, and she does dating advice on TikTok, and she went viral um, for making videos about men paying for dates. Um, so she went on to talk about a lot of people calling her a gold digger because her view is men need to man up, and women should not be paying for dates. Men are obligated to pay for dates. And if a man does that, then he doesn't truly value the women.
in his life. And she equated to that the way how she grew up, having both parents in the home, and seeing how her dad treated her mother. So um, she's not a huge influencer per se, but she has decent numbers. But she's basically telling men that well, she's telling women don't settle for any man who can't afford to take you on a date. 50-50 shouldn't work, and if you do 50-50 with a guy, he's not worth your effort. You shouldn't even see him. He shouldn't even be in the same presence as you. And this girl's serious. Now you look at her, you kind of understand. There's a certain type of person, usually people from LA, I see that she kind of fits that criteria, where she uses her looks to get what she wants. I'm not saying that's the case with her. I'm just coming up to that my conclusion based on what I've seen from this woman. But let me ask you, what do you think about that? Because this whole 50-50 debate has been happening. We've seen celebrities chime on it, regular people chime on it. What do you think about 50-50? Do you think that's in this day and age, 2023, do you think that's outdated? Do you think that's should be more accepted? How do you feel about that?
Well, I think Steve Harvey recently, I think he was on Shannon Sharp's podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't watch it, but I kind of have a vague idea of what he said, and he said something to the effect of it's a man's job to take care of a woman 100%, according to him. And I remember when we talked about Lori Harvey, Damson Idris back in January, I think either you or Adrian, one of y'all said that, what Steve Harvey says is like outdated, or one of y'all says something, along those lines. And
I think that was me.
everybody has their opinion. I think I can't say whether or not it's right or wrong for someone else. I mean, because if it's right for them, cool. I think it's important that, so if a woman feels that she's entitled to a man taking care of her 100%, all the bills, food is brought on the table, he's taking care of everything, buying her clothes, financing her whole entire lifestyle, then she should just find a man that shares those same ideals. Do I particularly agree with that? It really just depends on where I'm at in my life. And if I'm in a position where, I can take care of certain things, and yeah, sure, I don't have a problem if she's my woman, but whatever it is that she's doing for me, or what I feel like I'm getting out of that relationship, has to actually be worth it, because relationships are transactional. So she doesn't get all of that just because she's my woman. You know what I'm saying? And if you're going to be in a relationship with me, then there are certain things that you are going to do for me if I'm doing all of that for you. So it's just on people to just, again, find those that share those same ideals. So I can't say whether it's outdated or not, because clearly if someone else believes that, then it might be outdated to me or you, but it's still up to date with them. It's still, you know what I mean? Like a modern, mindset for them to have. So, that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, this whole 50-50 traditional versus the new school way of thinking. The only reason why I say it's outdated is because there's a lot of issues, from the generation Steve Harvey grew up. And I'm not saying for them back then, I'm sure they look at it like that. But look at all the unhealthy marriages that many people grew up in. How many grandparents are together because they were forced to? That back then it was normal to just stick it out with their partner, whether they was beating you, you couldn't leave the house, you couldn't have any friends. That was just normal back then to have that type of mindset. The problem now is, one, I just went grocery shopping, right? I mean, the amount of money I'm paying for groceries is a mortgage payment. I think people have to realize times has changed. The money, you could work at a McDonald's, 40 years ago and buy a house. You can't do that now. You could barely pay rent doing that. And I think the problem with Steve Harvey, and I was actually going to get to him. I don't think he's a bad person, but people shouldn't listen to people who obviously have a different tax bracket than them. Steve Harvey has the money to do that. He can take care of his wife. He has the access to money and all that stuff to do that. But realistically, not a lot of people will make that type of money, to go on a date. For instance, I'll use an example. Just a regular day out. Me and Allie, we went to the Spy Museum in downtown Manhattan, right? It was about $125 for the two of us, right? That's just one day. That's for 2 hours of fun, right? But you also got to remember you got transportation, you got food, and that's one day. So if you want to do that multiple days, yeah, there's some free stuff too. But eventually, you go out a couple times a week. You basically paying rent payments every week going out. And I think that type of that type of thinking, I wouldn't say it's outdated. I just think that the days of doing that is long gone. Now you can always find somebody who's tailored to your preference. I think a lot of people mess up relationships where they try to get with people who clearly are on the same a different wavelength. If you don't want somebody who's going to depend on you for financial support, then don't date that type of person. And that's one of the reasons why I hated dating LA, because LA was more about what you're going to do for me financially than it was about dating. New York is kind of the same way, but you can really, it's not as prevalent as LA. LA's dating scene is horrible. It stinks. It sucks. But I mean, depending on what you want, if you want to become a sugar baby, LA is the place to be. So anybody listen to and you need some advice, go to LA if you're trying to get in that path. But you know, what Steve Harvey said, it's like the same thing you see a lot of these rappers talk about. Birkin bags. If you don't buy your girl a Birkin bag, you ain't a real man. You know how much Birkin bags cost? I mean, I just feel like people need to be careful listening to people who have millions in the bank, who earn millions a year. The CEO of a Fortune 500 company is going to have a different way of thinking than someone who has two or three jobs to pay bills and stuff like that. So that's all I'm saying. Steve Harvey, I don't necessarily say he's outdated. I just think that term of having to pay for everything. If that's the case, then if I'm paying for everything, I could realistically say, hey, I need you to cook me a hot meal. But again, we're living in a society now where people don't want to be traditional anymore. So I don't know. I don't know. But in terms of traditional, let's get into the real meat and potatoes of this. And this is something that caught my attention years ago. We've talked about this, but I really want to break this down and get into more of it. Marques Houston. Um, you know, he was in You Got Serve. He did a lot of collaborations with B2K. Everybody knows B2K, I hope. Amarion, all the Lil Fizz and all of them. Marques Houston. So he came out recently defending himself, because he couldn't handle the trolls anymore. So Marques Houston was 38 years old when he married his wife. Oh yeah, I know you're probably wondering. 35, no. 20, 30, no. 25, no. 21, no. 19, yeah, close. She was 18 when he married his wife. And he knew her when she was 17. So this sparked a huge debate with a lot of people. Age in relationships. A lot of people say age is nothing but a number. Some people think it's an excuse for people to prey on people regarding their age. How do you feel? After a week of us talking about that, a week removed, are your opinions still the same about Marques, or has it changed?
My opinions about Marques Houston have always been the same. He's a guy that I grew up watching on television. That doesn't have a bearing on my thoughts on the situation, but I'm just throwing that out there because again, I always thought that he would strike me as a cool guy. Do I agree with him marrying a girl that was 18, going on 19 years old? No. I personally find women within 5 years of my age and older to be more appealing than a girl that is just coming into her 20s, because we would have nothing to relate about and nothing to talk to talk to each other about. So yeah, my thoughts on him have pretty much stayed the same.
Yeah, Marques Houston is immature. Get it? Get it? I'm just being stupid. But you know, I get what he was saying about baggage. A lot of people, that's one of the problems with relationships too. And I want to talk a little bit about that before I get to the age thing, because there's another couple I want to bring up regarding that. But I will say baggage is a huge thing in relationships, and I think a lot of people really need to start taking times to reevaluate where they are in their life and stuff like that. Because I watch podcasts after podcast after talk show after podcast about people's dating life, and I see people who obviously have a lot of trauma, a lot of issues that they haven't resolved, and they in and out of relationships. I have a bunch of buddies who can't be single for some reason. Every time I turn around, they got to be with another girl or a guy. I'm not here to judge, but I think a lot of people use relationships, use partners as like a cope mechanism. They have to come in and fix their issues. They got to, help them overcome what they're trying to overcome. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with relationships. So I will agree with him on that aspect. That a lot of people, especially as you get older, there's a lot of trauma and stuff that a lot of people don't work out, and they bring it into relationships and dump it on you. And then when you're a celebrity like he is, and you have that type of money, I'm pretty sure that's not something you really want to wake up to every day. But nonetheless, let's get to this age thing. I think I'm gonna double down on it. I think age is a number when it's not predatory in a way, or yet it's not seen as taking advantage. For instance, like I said, he's 38. He knew her when she was 17. Started talking to her as soon as she turned 18, because she even came out and said that. Like I said, I'm not here to call him, a molester or anything like that, but it is grooming. And it's like to the point I told you before. I remember, in high school when I was coming out of school, when I was 15, 16, 17 years old, there used to be a bunch of 37-year-old men, late 20s, dudes in their late 20s hanging around waiting for the girls to come out. And I never thought about it until as I started getting older, and I started realizing you're preying on people's naiveness. They're probably coming from a single parent home, because I grew up in the projects, and my school was near the projects. So a lot of these girls, a lot of people I was friends with didn't have a two-parent household. They was probably looking for a father figure. People were looking for a relationship, somebody they can confide in. So when you have somebody that much of a big age difference come to you, I'm not saying she had a daddy issue or anything like that, but I think it's very predatory for someone of his nature, famous, rich, although it happens all the time, to marry somebody fresh out of high school, especially when he knew her when she was out in school. So that really means to me that he knew that he was going to take her home, but he couldn't do it when she was 17. He had to wait. He had to wait a little bit. Um, but this also came to my attention because there was a TikTok couple um, that went viral, and I just heard about this last week. So this woman is 62 years old. And, I like my elders, right? 62 years old. Her boyfriend is not 50. He's not 45. Not 40, not 35. He's 25 years old. Um, Again, 25-year-old dating a 62-year-old woman. What do you think about that?
What are the ages?
The dude is 25 years old and his girlfriend is 62.
I wouldn't date that high. Me personally, she's she's in her 60s. I mean, she'd have to be a really good looking 60 something year old for me to even consider doing that. But that to me, that's too high. I draw the line at, like, again, the Carrie Hilsons, the Nia Longs, the Regina Halls, the Sherry Headleys, those types of women that I grew up watching, on television, because they're very attractive. So that's probably like the highest that I go. But it would really boil down to those particular women. But they're both adults. You know what I'm saying? I can't really say whether it's right or wrong for them, but me personally, I wouldn't engage, in any sort of relationship with a woman that's in her 60s, because I know what comes with that. So absolutely not.
And that's why I wanted to bring it, because that situation and the Marques Houston situation is basically the same thing, just in a different way. Um, Again, I mean, 10 years from now, this woman is my mother's age. Um, and 10 years from now, he's still going to be a young guy. Does he
They
want
won't be
money?
together.
I,
They will not be together unless she's like some super rich woman or something like that. They won't be together, because no man is like really is gonna be wanting to be messing around with some grandma looking ass woman. That's disgusting.
And that's the thing. It's because the age really is, it plays a factor in people's dating life. And a lot of people say age is just a number. That's a load of crap, because we all date for a specific reason, which is why if you want to start a family, you don't date somebody in the 80s. If you're looking for somebody who's on the same level, if you're trying to buy a home, you're not going to buy somebody on their deathbed. So I think for this situation, it's one of those cash grabs. You see this all the time. The young hot person dating an elderly old person is because they see a cash cow. Like I said, she's in her 60s. How many more years? God forbid. I ain't trying to throw no negativity at her, but realistically, how long do you really think she's gonna be alive? Um, and this reminds me of, I think it was Madonna, if I'm not mistaken, Madonna or Cher, one of those older pop stars. They were in their late 60s, early 70s, dating a 20-something-year-old person. Now I just look at it. I'm not hating, but I really, a lot of them, I'm sure it's probably they're looking for companionship. But realistically, from the guy's perspective, and if the roles are reversed, I say the same thing. But it's a money grab, because you look at the age and you're like, really, really, like this 25-year-old dude couldn't find anybody in their 20s. And I'm not saying she's ugly, but she's 62. So really, do you really think she's walking around looking like Beyonce? No. But I think it's more so the fact that they're in there to take advantage of the situation. Probably get their name on the deed, get their name in the will. Maybe get a little credit cards in their name. Probably get a couple cars out of it. I always look at the age as an ulterior motive. I don't think a lot of people date that much in age difference just because of love. I think it's a load of crap. I think when money is involved, people will always throw that out of the window. Huge Hefner. Do you agree with that, or do you think it really, as long as they're adults, they can just do whatever they want?
Once you get to a certain age, you can do whatever the hell you want. I mean, for the most part, it's like I said, before. I said what people feel about Marques Houston and his wife is not going to stop them from doing their thing. If it's legal, what I'm saying, sure. But obviously if they're like 17, 16, 15 years old, they can't do that because it's illegal. But if it's a 25-year-old and a woman that's well into her 60s, people can have their opinions about it, but it's not going to stop, two grown ass adults from doing what they want to do.
No, you're right. And you know what? That's why me personally, I don't give out. I used to give out relationship advice. I don't do it no more because people don't really listen to it. People don't really care. And at the end of the day, people are going to make their own decision. But like I said, I think.
What type of relationship advice have you given? That you don't give anymore because people don't listen.
Like when people, like in regards to looking at a potential partner, like for instance, and that's why I use LA as a prime example. I used to work at the front desk at my gym overnight, so I used to encounter, even when I was dating LA, I used to encounter a lot of good looking women, a lot, right? But dudes would come up to me, hey man, can you get her number for me? Yo, you know her, right? What's her IG? Can you give it to me? And I'd be like, I've talked to them. You're not exactly the person that they're looking for. And if you want that type of person, just realize that comes with a certain territory, meaning a lot of, like I said, in LA, a lot of people are dating for financial purpose and not so much about love. And I think, a lot of people get so caught up in looks or desperation, they're lonely, that they make these irrational impulse decisions. And
all right. So you're saying that some guys will come up to you and ask you about a certain girl, and you would tell them that these guys are not what she's looking for. You said,
yeah, like they
see that's where you're wrong at, man. And I don't agree with that in a sense of, if some guy he's interested in her, then go for it. Go for it. Don't tell somebody not to go for something that they think that they want, because whether she's interested in them or not, you can't tell that to them. That's not for you to say. You got to stay out of that. That's why I wanted to know what kind of relationship advice, were you giving, because that to me is not, no, like stuff like that, I draw the line at that. You can't, if someone says, yo, man, I like her. Like, I think she's attractive. She seems like she's a cool person. Maybe I might want to talk to her. You don't tell this dude, oh, you're not what she's looking for. Get the fuck out of here. Don't tell him that.
No. I
Don't
didn't
say anything. Just be like, well, hey, if you want to, why are you telling me? Go and talk. That's all I would say. I'll say, go and talk to her. What are you telling me this for? Because that's the advice I would give. Why are you asking me or talking to me about her? She's over there. Go ahead and talk to her if you're really about that life. You know what I'm saying? But I would never tell somebody to not pursue something that they say that they want to do, because I would not want to stop somebody from doing that. I would never want to be somebody else's roadblock.
On the heels of that, I want to circle back to what you was talking about, the Andrew Tate and all that stuff. I think one of the reasons why they're so successful is because there's a lot of people, who are struggling. A lot of people don't have coming from single parent homes, foster care like myself, self identity issues, lack of self confidence. A lot of people don't have somebody in their family. You'd be surprised. A lot of people don't have friends or family or somebody to guide them when it comes to relationships or just life in general. So a lot of people, growing up in the projects for me, there's a lot of people. This reminds me of a podcast, but I'm gonna get to that in a second. But there was a lot of people who glorify the street life. And a lot of people, when you're coming from a single parent household, your mom may be too busy to realize, or whatever the case may be. But I knew a lot of people who looked up to the people in the street, and they looked up to them as a father figure or mother figure, whatever the case may be, and they grew up thinking that was the way to live a life. I got to find a partner who do certain activities on the side that they shouldn't be doing, or they've learned certain principles that really aren't healthy. And I think so many people going through life, if you don't have a lot of self confidence, if you have a lack of if you have a lack of self esteem, you let anybody walk all over you. And I think that's why so many people listen to Andrew Tate, listen to the Kevin Samuels and all the other big relationship gurus, because they're that person in their life that's telling them how to operate. There's a guy on YouTube, Coach Wayne. I used to watch him not for relationship advice, but just to see how he used to give dating advice to people. So he had a part of his YouTube channel where people would write him letters and he answered it on the channel. Now he keep their names anonymous, but he used to give guys advice that way. Oh, you taking this girl? Oh, she's for the streets. Oh, she didn't let you hit on the first date. She for the streets. Stuff like that is harmful when you're telling dudes, oh, if you don't get access the first day, she's for the streets. You got to kick her out and stuff like that. It's a lot of these people are giving out harmful behavior, but because you don't have that father figure, not everybody has a Dimitri who's going to tell them what they need to hear. A lot of people don't have a New Yorker in the air to tell them the truth. New York is one of the most blunt places I know, and I'm from here, and I love that people just tell you they don't sugarcoat nothing. They just tell you, yo, bro, this A, B, C, D. They don't give you the runaround, and a lot of people don't have somebody to guide them. So many, like that girl, for instance, that I brought up. That's the only reason why I was giving advice, because I could clearly tell she had no idea what I was talking about when I was talking about not everybody wants relationships. She don't know. I think she was what, 22, but she's only been one guy for a couple years. She's super religious, so she don't drink, she don't go out to party. She don't know what this new dating game is like. A lot of people out here just using each other for financial gain, for a free trip and a free lunch, free dinner. She don't know everybody. A lot of people doing the friends with benefits. She don't know a lot of people don't want a serious commitment, especially at 22. So I think that's why the Andrew Tates and them are successful, is because there's a lot of people who just going about life without somebody to guide them, which is why so many people, when you hear about the Marques Houstons, just in general, but the older guy dating the teenage girl, or the teenage boy dating the older women, it's usually because they're looking for that father figure or mother figure that they never had. So they're looking for that relationship in somebody else. And I think that's why relationships suck so much, is because, like I said, Marques Houston, when he talked about baggage, I think baggage is not just kids. Is the fact that a lot of people need to work on themselves before they get in relationships. And so many people jump in our relationships, don't take care of themselves. They got cheated on the last relationship. So what they do a month later, they get another boyfriend or girlfriend and dump that trauma on them without working on that. And I think so many people really need to figure out who they are, be confident, and then relationships would be a lot better. I mean, what do you think about that?
I mean, yeah, like that confidence comes from experience. You're not gonna get a job and then all of a sudden be the most confident person in there because you don't have the experience. But then you fast forward a couple years, you're gonna have some experience under your belt, and then that's where that confidence within yourself is gonna come from. I'm not guiding anybody. Like, and here's the thing: like, a lot of what I know from relationships is not because somebody in my life told me this shit. Not really. Like, a lot of that comes from myself. Everything I just told you, I didn't quote not one person. That all came from me. So it's not that I had a father figure or somebody who was from New York. Like, nobody. Like, yo, honestly, like I'm really trying to think. Like, I don't remember the last time I got like sound advice that I wanted to hear. And
Right.
it's like, from what I said earlier, that's something that to me is sound like advice, like, which I will call it that, which is, again, like, if you're going to block her, just make sure you can live with that, bro, because I know how much you care about her. That's it. That is simple. Like, you don't have to be from New York. Like, you just have to be a good friend. You know what I'm saying? Because you have to live, like, what's funny, that comes with living a certain, like, enough life. Is what I said before. Like, a woman who's super young, she hasn't lived enough life yet.
Right.
That's what I would want to hear. And because I know what it's like to lose somebody that I care about over, me being stubborn, or because I was trying to protect myself, is why I could tell you, all right, if you're going to do that, cool, but I know what it's like, saying, to lose your girl.
Yeah,
Saying,
right, right.
especially to watch her with somebody else. So if you're going to block her, or if y'all going to break up, or if you just don't want to be with her no more, just make sure that's something you really want to do that. You really want to do that, and you can live with that down the line. Because some niggas, again, like, they make those types of decisions, and they can't live with that shit down the line because they live to regret it. That's what I'm saying. So, that shit didn't come from, nobody else. All that came from within myself.
But you know what though, and that's what I said. Everybody, because for me and you is different, But a lot of people, I think being in the entertainment industry also made us grow up a lot of faster, which is why we probably sound a lot older than we are. But I think a lot of people that also don't haven't had, because we're still young. We're not, we don't got a family settled down,
Mm-hmm.
working in the workforce for 40 years, but we've allowed ourselves to go through some of the things that a lot of people haven't even touched on yet. So I think for me, what I would have liked, first, I'll say this. My mom, the reason why I'm the way I am is because my mom is a very unemotional person.
Mm-hmm.
She has her moments, but whenever a guy will approach her, they either come correct or she didn't talk to him. So for me growing up, my mom's never had like a stable boyfriend ever. I mean, I'm not saying she was bringing guys in and out the house. No, I've rarely seen a guy cross the door. And I think for her, it was because she had a lot of self-respect. She grew up a certain way, so there was a certain way she wanted to run life. And I think that's why I'm the way I am, because I've never looked at a relationship like I need one. I don't need it. Before I started dating Natalie, I was single for 6, 7 years, and I loved it. I didn't need somebody every day to wake up to or call, just because that's how my mom raised me, and that's how I saw my mom. She didn't
Mm-hmm.
need somebody to wake up every morning to make her feel special. My
I
mom
respect
just
that.
said, you know what I'm saying?
I respect that, because me, I was just gonna say, it didn't really come from being an actor or entertainment. It's just because it was always inherently within me to learn from the things that I go through.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so all the girls that I've ever dated, like, even if, let's say, it was short term, or the long term girlfriends that I've had, I think about them sometimes. You know what I'm saying? And I always think, like, all right, so why didn't it work out, or why did this happen? Why didn't this happen? And what is my ultimate takeaway from it? Like I said years ago, I've dissected those relationships like a dead frog, because I just have that analytical mind where I'm just going to analyze, why certain things happen. So that way, when I get in the next situation, I'm not going to make the same types of mistakes. So, and that's just because of me. I can't even, pinpoint it from my family, because there's not one relationship in my entire family that I ever looked at and admired. So I've never had, that example in my face ever. I can't name you one that I actually respect.
Right.
So it's because I want to force that from myself, is why I'm like, all right, if shit didn't work out with her, how can I make it so that way the next time I'm in that situation, then it can go a little bit smoother? You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah, but and you know, and that's why this all ties together. Social media. That's why a lot of these dudes they and women too, because there's women, you know, dating advice people out there. But that's why they make so much money because it's a lucrative business. I mean, people spend top dollar to be on Tinder. People pay top dollar just for a dinner date. And I think a lot of people. I think if they and I get it. Everybody's different. Not everybody can go through life like me and you. Some people they need somebody. You know, I listen to podcasts where people at 50 are still looking for a father figure. So I get it. Everybody's different. Not
because
everybody's
people
gonna
got
have
a void there because
right.
and it's not sometimes like I'll say like there are some people that yeah like they can't function without being in a relationship. Like there are those types of people. All right. But then there's others where it be a void. Like, and that will happen when you get used to somebody being in your life for an extended period of time. That's like, let's say, you know, you and Natalie break up for whatever reason. Y'all live together. Y'all been around each other for a certain amount of time. So let's say if all of a sudden you had to go without that, you don't think you'd feel that something was missing from your life? Nigga, stop lying. Stop fucking. You
no, no.
you you are a goddamn liar. If you would say you've been with your girl for we say year and a half, 2 years,
Yeah.
year and a half to 2 years, y'all live together. You're always around her, and if you broke up tomorrow, you wouldn't feel like there's something missing
Oh yeah.
in your life. That's what I asked
For like
you.
a couple weeks, but I wouldn't. You know.
Hey, I'm just saying because you have to be able to admit that that shit is real because we are interpersonal beings. It's not like we fucking procreate asexually. No, you need somebody else to do that. We are on this earth and we're built to freaking be in pairs. That's just who we are. So I don't knock people for wanting that because it's a great feeling. Who the fuck wouldn't want to have somebody that they can love and love them and be able to get that shit back? Especially for us as men, there's a certain energy that we get from women that we can't get from other niggas.
No,
like, yeah, I could talk to you about, like whatever it is I want to talk to you about, you know what I'm saying? But that's like bro energy. But
right.
the type of energy that you get from a girl, there's no comparison.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
it's like a softness to a woman when you talk to her and stuff that like I prefer that over a guy. Like, yeah, I got nothing but like, niggas in my corner, that's cool. But like I get tired of that after a while. So when you see dudes, flexing to get girls and stuff like that, I don't even be knocking them because I know what it's like to just, have a girl, I get off of work or I'm at my friend's house. It's 11:30 at night and, I'm driving back home. So I'm calling her on my way home and then we on the phone till we go to sleep. Then I know I'm going to see her on this day. We going to the movies and then going to the movies with like going to movies with your girls way better than going by yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just no comparison. Because to me, society now, and I feel like you're kind of part of that, where society now is like they push for the being unemotional and we broke up, but I'm only gonna be like that for a couple of weeks. Like, yeah, that shit is cool, and you could try to be like that. I mean, I'm speaking for myself. I can't speak for you, but for me, it's like, yeah, I could try to not care, but if she was somebody that I really cared about at some point, it's going to show up as it's going to set in whether I wanted to or not. Because when you see me get in a relationship with a girl, you don't hear me talk about girls all the time. And when I do come to you and I'm like, yo, there's this girl and stuff like that and blah, 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 it's because it's serious.
Right.
So if I feel like that, it's because it was real. So for me personally, it's like, I'm not gonna, say, if I broke up with her, I'm not gonna feel like something is missing because I was with her. I met her in June of last year. We broke up in January. I still feel like something is missing, even though she was in my life for a short time relative to, let's say, my other ex-girlfriend, but she meant a lot to me. You know what I'm saying? So, and I wasn't able to kind of protect myself from myself in a way. You get what I'm saying? Myself, who was protecting myself. Because I said in a video, a reaction I did of the episode of Bel Air, where it's the season finale of season 2 of Bel Air on Peacock, and the character Jazz, who was Will's best friend, he tells Will, he was like, "Yo, like I feel like I missed out, I messed up like the best thing that ever happened to me." And when he said that, I was like, yo, I feel you. Because in this day and age now, niggas will say, oh, yeah, you'll find somebody else. No, nigga, because there's only one Percy. There's only one me. And it's the same thing. There's only one Natalie, and there's only one of my ex-girlfriends. So what the fuck I look like saying, oh, I'm going to just find somebody else to just fill that spot? Fuck that shit. I had something real with her, and it meant something to me. So when I say that shit out loud, don't fucking tell me, oh, you could just find somebody else. I mean, yeah, that is true, but that shit don't make me feel fucking better about losing her.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So real friends will protect you from that. That's what I'm saying. Because to me, it's more because I'm just a real dude, and I'm not afraid to say how I really feel, and that's how I felt.
You know what? I think the reason why society's doing that is because, like I said, we see that there's someone close to me. I would try to divulge a little bit, but just for the privacy, I won't. But this one close to me, I know, who grew up with two parents that despise each other. They stayed married, still live with each other, but they never got divorced. They stayed with each other for some odd reason. They don't eat together, they'll sleep together, but they stay together. And it's impacted the whole family. So some family members have a lot of anger issues. Some are desperate to look for somebody to fill a void. They're very desperate. And I'm not trying to say that in a mean way, but anybody that give them a little attention, they cling to. And I think that's why society, they seen the generation trauma. For how many stories we hear about grandparents who, they was beating on each other, doing all this and that. How many of our parents stay together despite all of the violence and stuff that they endured, because society has made them say, oh, you stick together for the children. But doing that is also making the children unhappy. It reminds me of the conversation we had with Emmy Roback and her husband. I know you were saying that, when you find somebody that makes you feel like a child again, why not go explore that?
I didn't say that. Well, I know what you mean now. I didn't say it makes you feel like a child again, but I said I said how if I was working somewhere, if I was like, a media guy or some shit, and then I got to work with Lori Harvey for a freaking extended period of time, if I feel like she brings something to the table that, like, and this is only in the event that, like, my wife is not doing it for me anymore, or if I'm not passionate or enthusiastic about my girl anymore, yeah, why the hell not pursue that?
But yeah, and I think that situation too. That's why I was speaking more as of the fact that just I think that's why so many people are doing that, where they're not, they just breaking up easily, getting divorced. I mean, nowadays you're seeing people getting divorced like after 2 years of marriage, and I think some of the problem is the options. Social media has made it so where you can just DM somebody and say, oh, you know what, screw her or screw him, I'm going over here. But also think that a lot of people just aren't putting up with the nonsense anymore. For instance, if I think, like I said, when you build the bond with somebody, yeah, it hurts to lose them, but at some point you also got to realize some people, just because you have a bond with somebody don't mean you're together. And it's an extreme example, right? And I know you're gonna laugh because I mention this person's name all the time, but Ted Bundy. How many women, when this dude was on trial in prison, because they loved him so much, they were still clamoring for this man. Like, and it's because that bond that they had. And don't get me wrong, I understand it, but this dude was murdering people. You telling me, I get it, but and I think that's what society is doing. In a negative way, I also see the impact where relationships just aren't treated as sacred anymore. People are just losing their. I heard a study. People are losing their virginity as early as 12 nowadays. I mean, I don't know what's going on with our society, but I just think that relationships. I think more people just need to work on themselves, because, like I said, I see these podcasts where a lot of these women in their 30s. There's one podcast, particular Daily Wrap-Up Crew, where these guys interview multiple different girls, whether they're famous or not. But I mean, some of these girls talking about, they praise. I just watched the episode where this girl was praising drug dealers. Oh yeah, I need a drug dealer type of guy because he gets that money. I'm like, yo, you in your 30s talking like this? When you talking about drug dealers for, like, and that's the thing. I'm not saying every woman is like that. I'm not saying every man is like that who think like that. But so many people, they have a lot of trauma. They have a lot of baggage. Another girl was openly admitted to sleeping with a married man, not caring that it was destroying his family. It's like people just like lost all principles and just whatever nowadays. And I think our society, I think it needs to be a balance. Like, you can work on a relationship. I think so many people are quick, especially if you get married. You get divorced after 2 years, unless we're talking about real like domestic violence and all that stuff. That's different. But just over petty arguments, you on Instagram tomorrow. I'm not gonna lie, I'd probably be a little salty, but at the same time, for me, the reason why I'm the way I am is because I don't view a relationship as a necessity for me. Don't get me wrong, I like being in a relationship, but me and Natalie talk about this all the time. She's the same way. If we was to break up, I'm sure we would cry and all that stuff. But you can't force somebody to be with you. And at the same time, her happiness is not indicative on me being there because she had a life before me. She'll have a life after me. If let's say God forbid something happened to me, she's gonna have to live. And that's
right. Yo, hold on. I just gotta take a piss real quick. Hold on, bro. My bad. My bad.
But yeah, this is a good episode. Like I said, I don't really talk about relationships too much, but any other final thoughts you have, Dimitri? Because I know let's make it look like we're the Kevin Samuels and Andrew Tates. You got any advice for people?
I don't have advice for people. If I said I had advice, that'd be contrary to everything that I said this whole entire time.
I'm setting you up.
I just say, yo, just make your life about you. Your life is not about other people. Life is what you make it. And if you try to make it what other people, it's like you try to paint your life with other people's paintbrushes and other people's colors and stuff like that, it'll never be to your liking. So, forge your own path, have the relationships that you want. Have your own opinions, your own thoughts, your own beliefs, and you live life based on those ideals that come from you, not other people. And that's my thoughts on that.
Beautifully said. And let me, if anybody takes anything away from this podcast, it's not, we're not trying to dog anybody here. We're not trying to, tell people what to do. It's more so, my opinion is this: people, enjoy life and learn how to be self-dependent on yourself. I think a lot of people are seeking validation from social media, from these life coaches, from these content creators, these influencers, because they don't have that presence or that person within them to not pay attention to that. So if anything, like I said, work on yourself. Always work on yourself. We could always learn. We could always improve. Everybody have, things about themselves or qualities about themselves or trauma about themselves that they're trying to work through. So there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody has it. And, life is all about a journey. So make that journey, like Dimitri said, about you. Nobody can steer the ship that you're trying to go. So if you want to go somewhere, you got to stay your own ship. So with that being said, like I always say, a helping hand is a better hand. Thank you, Dimitri, for coming on, cursing up a storm, but dropping some gems. And we'll see you in the next one.